wrapped me in your arms, leaned in and whispered, keep me in your heart, I'm so bewildered.
You're listening to Icelandic contemporary jazz pop artist Laufey, who takes inspiration from 30s and 40s artists like Billie Holiday and Ella Fitzgerald, along with current pop artists like Taylor Swift and Adele.
But now I think
her music is a throwback to a simpler time. I was introduced to her music when I stumbled upon a YouTube video where she was featured in an interview, and I immediately fell in love with her music. I was listening to her songs while walking through a city park, and it colored what I was seeing with a cozier, nostalgic vibe. I watched squirrels play as if they were dancing to her soundtrack, and it just made me feel happier. A feeling we could all use more of these days.
Hi, you've reached Tanya's answering machine. She can't come to the phone right now as she's busy reminiscing about the past. Please leave your comments below and be sure to subscribe. Thanks. Bye.
It's not that I'm nearly 55 and remember a time when things were simpler and our day-to-day was free of overwhelming technology. It would make sense that someone my age has a lot of life to look back on and remember with fondness. But what is curious is the growing number of Gen Zers who are looking back on a time with fondness that they were never even a part of. I heard a YouTuber talking about how the 80s were the golden era, a statement that cracked me up because all I remember of that era was big hair, acid-wash jeans, and neon colors. However, I'm very fond of the music, and I don't think I ever met a Duran Duran song I didn't like. This recent realization that Gen Zers are consuming nostalgic content was featured in a recent New York Times article called "Why Gen Z is Resurrecting the 1990s." In the article it states, quote, "A 2023 survey conducted by the Harris Poll in partnership with my research team found that 80% of Gen Z adults, that is, those born after 1997, were worried that their generation was too dependent on technology. 75% were concerned about social media's impact on young people's mental health, and 58% said that new technologies were more likely to drive people apart than bring them together." In August, I did my own social media detox. Well, sort of. My main targets were Instagram and Facebook, as I've never had, thank God, a TikTok account. There are a million reasons I wanted to re-examine my usage of social media, and here are just a few examples why. First, I found that it was pulling my attention constantly. The second I was bored, I found myself scrolling or checking in on Facebook. I was mad at myself that this thing could hijack my attention so easily. The second reason is how I found myself either annoyed or feeling some kind of negative reaction to what I was seeing other people post. Everything from humble bragging to attention seeking to people fighting in the comments. Plus, everything on Instagram just feels like ads, or posts that are supposed to be informative or entertaining, but are just ads in disguise. Every post seems to have an agenda. Another reason is I didn't like that I was spending so much time seeing how other people were spending their time, which is a weird way to live. I'm still guilty of this on YouTube sometimes, but I'm working on it. I also wanted to examine my own posting habits. With everything I mentioned that annoyed me on social media, I'm sure I've been guilty of it myself with past posts. My theme this year is quiet confidence, and I wanted to examine who I was on a deeper level without seeking any kind of external validation. Something I think is a huge problem on social media. So, how did I do with my 1-month detox? Well, it was kind of a fail, sort of. I did well the first half of the month, but I was hired to shoot and edit some Instagram reels, and I had to view reels for ideas. Pandora's box was opened. I will say, however, that I didn't post anything at all, so that was a win. My conclusion was that having social media at my fingertips but not allowing myself to look at it was like having chocolate in the house but saying, I'm not allowing myself to eat it. So I deleted Instagram, and honestly, the scariest part was just hitting the deactivate button. But since then, I don't miss it. Not one single bit. I still have Facebook, but I'm re-examining whether I want to keep that as well. I'm growing very weary of all the fighting and loud noise that comes from that platform. And don't even get me started on the AI posts. I think with AI, we are losing a lot of our critical thinking skills, a subject I might cover at a later time. Another interesting thing I found with being plugged in is creating YouTube videos. It was something I explored last year when I created some videos about my life, but I quickly realized a couple of things. The first was during my decorating for Christmas video, I wanted to give off a cozy vibe, but I found the process of filming the whole experience actually took me out of that cozy feeling. It just felt stressful and performative. I think of that now every time I see cozy type content. It looks like everyone else is living this storybook cozy life, but in reality, filming it all is work. Changing camera angles, trying to find the perfect light, and overspending on decor to curate a perfect Pinterest home. I personally found that I was better off doing things just for me and not sharing them with the world, which is kind of my second point, that I've become way more private about my life in the last year. If you want to know more about that, click on my last video about moving in silence. All of this to say, everything you see online is somewhat of an illusion. I still consume cozy content, but I take it with a grain of salt and remind myself I don't need to envy someone's perfectly curated vintage-style kitchen. I think there is a very real fear of disconnecting, but in reality, it's a more normal form of connection not to be, well, connected. We aren't meant to know what 8 billion people are doing with their lives, and vice versa. We need to retrain our brains to go back to a time when friendships were real and not parasocial, and when we purposely sought out connection through third places. What are third places? According to the Albert Shanker Institute, sociologist Ray Oldenburg first introduced the concept of third places in his 1989 book, The Great Good Place. Oldenburg advocates that to live a more balanced, happy life, people need engagement in 3 realms: at home, work, and in third places. Third places act as a core setting for informal public life, offering connection, community, and sociability. For adults, examples include cafes, parks, gyms, and other places centered around a common interest that fosters community and civic engagement. Very simply, third places can be thought of as societal glue. They bind people together to construct communities. No doubt our social muscles have atrophied somewhat due to things like social media and amplified more during the COVID lockdown and work from home situations. Although, in honesty, I'm much happier working from home than in an office. Even as a self-proclaimed introvert and homebody, I still make an effort by engaging in community activities over the years like beach volleyball, theater, dance classes, and a weekly movie club. As a Gen Xer, I feel somewhat lucky that I have lived in both worlds of being unplugged and where we are today with technology. And I can't complain about certain things technology offers these days, like GPS, because if you've ever opened a Thomas Guide in your life, you know. And if I'm in the mood to hear a specific song, I can listen to it immediately versus the olden days when you had to be glued to your radio for hours just waiting for your favorite song to come on. But I do miss things about those times as well. And so does a growing number of Gen Zers. According to that New York Times article, 60% of Gen Z adults said that they wished they could return to a time before everyone was plugged in. I mean, watch any fall-inspired YouTube video and virtually everyone, young and old, is watching Gilmore Girls. Why? Well, my theory, it gives off nostalgic, cozy vibes. It's a feeling of a tight-knit, albeit quirky, small-town community with cozy fall festivals that take place in a quaint town square. It's the media version of a warm hug. And you can see other trends emerging with younger people these days as well. There's a rise in reading more physical books than digital books. I'm starting to prefer this myself because it feels tangible and there's nothing like the smell of a book. Other trends include listening to music on vinyl, though I suspect Taylor Swift had a lot to do with that. Vintage as a keyword skyrocketing on Pinterest, and analog hobbies like crocheting, scrapbooking, cooking, and baking are all trending upward. Technology is one of those things that almost cannot be undone. It's a genie that can't be put back in the bottle, and in some ways technology has made our lives so much better. But like anything that comes out swinging hot and heavy, there needs to be some course corrections so that we can live more balanced lives. The stress and overwhelm of technology on our mental health is not something to ignore. And I, for one, am encouraged to see younger generations having somewhat of a revolt against the machine. Nostalgia is one trend I can get on board with. Until next time, thanks for watching.